One of the reasons that I noticed that made me not to hold my trade for as long as I possibly can to make the most from every single position I take is simply because I don't know when the trend is going to change and shift against me. And I guess that's something that happens to each and every one of us. So today I'm going to show, or rather share with you, one of the tricks that can help you identify when a shift is about to happen for you to be able to manage it properly. Today, we're going to be talking about fundamental analysis. Basically, I'm just looking for the last trending month to explain this better on the Euro USD pair. To use fundamental analysis on your trade, especially when you're already in a trade, you've already done your tax, you've already done what is expected of you, you've done your analysis, and now you're in the trade. And bear in mind that this works best for swing trader like me, people that stay on the trade for a very long time. Those are the folks that would enjoy, or rather see the most benefit from what I'm about to share with you guys. So if you're a trader, a swing trader, and you want to stay on the trade for as long as possible, then this will definitely help you as is an additional skill to add to your toolkit. So first thing you would want to do is to go to your setting, go to events, and then you activate or you make visible event breakouts. So now with this, you will see all the fundamental release for the past few months. So I had to mark this. So this was where the trend starting from the back test that I'm about to do. So let's say, for instance, today is Monday, 3rd of February 2025. You got in on your trade somewhere around here. Let's say this was where you got in. And then, or let's even make it more realistic. This is a break of structure. And there was a news release here that broke this structure. Let's say that's all you need to get into a trade here. Now you're in this trade and there was another news release on the USD side. And this release, this news, broke that structure even further. It went high. So the only thing I need you to do right now, based off of this additional tool that I'm sharing with you, the only thing I need you to do is to just stay on the trade because the news is in your favor. And then you mark around the zone. Maybe you put down a lot or whatever around the zone. Watch how price reacts. And clearly it's going up. All you need to do is not to take any single action until the next release, which was when? On Tuesday, 4th of February. And then the next release was also bullish. And you do the same thing. You take no action. You see what price does around this zone, the end, the open and the close of that, particular news. See what price does. Or let's just say you move your stop loss or whatever however you trade, just have in mind that the trend is active, because what I'm just showing is how to know when to leave and when to stay. So the trend has been going up, and then on Wednesday, the 5th of February, there was another news that didn't make so much move. But for something like this, all you need to do is just see what happens to your last support and resistance after the news. So after the news, we noticed that even though the news wasn't much of an impact at the moment, we still see that that news was able to take out our support and resistance, because that's the last news, the last fundamental release before the support and resistance was taken out. So at this moment, you begin to figure out how to manage your trade. Do whatever it is you do to get out of the trade. But right now, have this in mind that the trend is about to go against you. Is either you figure out how to, get out of the trade somewhere around here, or if you're lucky, you see, you're giving back almost everything simply because of this. So this is one of the ways that we can, manage our trade better by paying attention to the fundamental release. So now, for a situation like this, because like I say, you see what happens after the release. So after this particular fundamental release, we notice that price went down to break this, which is a sign that the momentum is no longer in our favor. So we should start looking for ways to get out of this trade. But let's say you were still deciding, maybe for some reason you say, oh, okay, that this is the last swing and whatever happened to this, let me use a new one. Whatever happened to this, we decide whether or not I'll get out of this trade. And then for some reason, this happened. There was a news that came in your favor. And this news was on Friday. Yeah, there was a news that came in your favor. All you need to do is still figure out what happened after this news. Was it able to take out the most recent high? Clearly, no. Instead, it still took out this. So this is a perfect, example, because whatever makes you stay in the trade up until this point, whatever made you not to get out of this trade at this point and you stayed up until this point, this is making it clear that this thing is no longer going in your favor. So it's best for you to just get out here. That's it. This is like a perfect example, but let's go on, because there's always something to learn. Let me remove all of this and look for a perfect example. Because the truth is, trading needs to be simple, and the perfect examples makes it even easier to learn. Let's say there's an uptrend, but before all of this happened, let's say for some reason we got in at the break of this structure uptrend, and then we say, oh wow, there's a trade here, there's a break of this moving average, and then the break of structure makes it perfect for us to like enter here. Now we're in the trade. Now we know for sure that okay, there's a news that goes in favor of our direction, and it broke the last higher high. So now it's perfect for us to be in this trade. We're in the trade now. The next thing we need to do is to wait for the next news release to figure out our next move. The next news release was on Wednesday around 2 o'clock. And now all we need to do is to figure out what happened to our resistance after that news. Our resistance is still holding firm. So we hold. The next news came out just immediately after around 4 o'clock, and it pushed and broke to the upside, which is perfect. That's what we want. We held a little bit, and then there was a massive pullback almost to the point where our resistance was broken. And then what saved it was this very news that came up here around 2 o'clock on February 13 on Thursday, saving it from, breaking our resistance, which is what we want. This shows that the momentum is still on our side, and, the price is still willing to go up. So we hold. Remember, this is a swing trading approach. It's not like a scalping method where you just go in and out. We hold till the next news release to tell us what to do. By the time the next news release would come out, that was on Friday around 2 o'clock, we noticed after the news release what happened. Our recent high was broken, telling us to hang on. The trend is still in our favor. Our recent high was, tampered with at this point. Just immediately after the news release, we noticed our recent high was broken. Now that our recent high is broken, all you need to do right now is to figure out how to leave this trend, because our higher low is no longer holding. So let's see how it plays out. The news broke this higher low, and now we should look at how to get out. For someone like me, I'll set an alarm here. If this lower low is broken, then I know I need to be out. I'm getting out here. In a case like this, you see, it went off, but it's always safe to do what you know. For me, I'll definitely get out here because, for one, the next news came and it was you know, in our favor, but for some reason, it still didn't break this. So it's either I'm getting out here or I'm getting out here. But unfortunately, this is something that happens all the time in the market. And trust me, it's best you do what you're sure of than, hanging around waiting for something that is not so sure. Unfortunately, the Wednesday news came up and broke, this high, which made it possible for the higher high to continue. The news came and the momentum came back. The momentum shifted to our favor, but unfortunately, we're out of the trade here, which, if you ask me, is still a very good trade. If you say something like, this, uh, um, if we do something like this as our risk to reward, let's say we got that around here, which is pretty much 2 hours. So this is a very decent trade, if you ask me. So yeah, one last example to just solidify this, because I know this will be very meaningful to most of us. We just did this month, so the next month, let's see how it goes. So the month just started here on Monday, 3rd of March. So we do the same thing we do all the time. There was a break of structure here that was propelled by news. So we got in immediately after the news. Let's see how fundamental can help us to stay in this trade as long as possible. So after this particular news release, we noticed the next thing was a break of structure, telling us the news is in favor of our move. So we're in it till the next news release, which happened here. So we mark our lower low to see what happens if the news is going to tamper with this. And no, it did not. Instead, it still broke its high. So it tells us hanging there is still in our favor. The next news release on Thursday broke the higher high, which is still in our favor. The next news release was on Friday, although the news says, it was a bearish candle, but for some reason, our lower high still holds. So we still stay in the trade. And our moving average is still, we're very much above it. So we're still staying in this trade to see what happens to either one of our resistance or our support rather, or the resistance. So we see what happens to it. The next news release, didn't touch this. I don't think I will consider this as a lower low at the moment, but I'm looking at this. So nothing happened to it. And then the next news release, nothing. I think at this point we would understand that we're in somewhat a range movement. So we see what happens to either one of these lanes. So by the time the next news release would be out, we're already out of this range. So now we're on the go, still in this particular trade. The next one came and unfortunately our lower high was tampered with. The news release held on top of it, which says okay, which suggests that okay, was still good, but before, it was able to break the higher high, it broke the lower low. So like I always do, I'll place this here and say whatever happens to this, I should be out. So by the time this news release will be out, trust me, I will no longer be in this trade. So no matter what happens here, let's see. We see it even went down. So no matter what happens here, this is not what's this is not worth dying for. So let's see our risk to reward what we're able to do again just by looking at fundamental release. So we got in here and our stop loss is clearly going to be at the recent low, getting at around somewhere here. Or let's see, so okay, we got that somewhere here, 6 hour. Now this, like I always said, is only going to be effective if you're a swing trader. And movements like this, trust me, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's something that swing traders would easily capture because we're always, holding for the longest time. So yeah, that's pretty much the video. I hope this was beneficial to you and I hope you learned something new and something that might help you when next you decide to swing trade. See you guys in the next video.